Hello and welcome back to another episode of Purpose Through Fitness, a community designed to encourage you to live a more positive, happy, and healthy lifestyle. We are going to uncover secrets of the body, the mind, and the spirit to help put you in the best position possible to live a more purposeful life. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Purpose Through Fitness. I am so thrilled to have my next guest on today. She is an inspiration to women and mothers everywhere, creator of the Strong is the New Sexy program, and yes, I guarantee she is stronger than your boyfriend. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Emily Adams to the show. Emily, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me and for that introduction. I appreciate it.
Of course. So tell me, how have you been?
So I've been really good. A lot of life changes. The sun is shining here today. It's amazing weather. I appreciate any time that the weather is nice. And yeah, just very thankful to be here.
Excellent. Excellent. We're so happy to have you here. Now, for those of you that don't know Emily, you're about to hear an incredible story. Someone who has gone through a lot of obstacles in her life, someone who has seen a lot of ups and downs and has progressed and transcended into something very, very powerful. So I'm excited to let her share her story, where she started with fitness and where she is today. So Emily, the floor is yours. Go ahead and give us a little background on you.
Thank you. So we will start. I was born and raised in Indiana, and I was raised in the Amish culture. I left at the age of 17, made the decision to turn my back on everything I had known because I felt like there was more to life, and I always wondered why I was raised the way I was. So I was constantly searching, and I was the challenging child. I definitely was a tomboy growing up. I wasn't your typical Amish girl that would learn how to cook, clean, sew, do the girly things. And I was constantly outside playing basketball with my brothers or playing any kind of sports and loved training horses. That was something I was very passionate about. So when I left at the age of 17, one of the things I wanted to always do was get a degree, become an athlete. And I wondered what it would feel like to be an athlete. Fast forward to 18, I became pregnant with my oldest son, and I didn't gain a whole lot of weight around the pregnancy, had him, got married at the age of 19. It was an abusive marriage, and I was going to leave, but I felt stuck because now I was pregnant with my second son. And it took me a while. It took me 2 times to actually leave the marriage because being a single mom really scared me. It went against everything I was raised, and nobody wants to be labeled as a single mom. I always felt like I was being judged for it. And now I know that's not true, but as a single mom, I left and I decided I was going to take control of my life. I had gained 55 pounds with my youngest while I was pregnant with him, and I did not like who I was. I had no confidence. I didn't even like to be around some of my friends that were fit because I just felt like I wasn't worthy and I never would be good enough. So I needed an outlet. I decided to join a gym, and this gym membership had 24/7 access. So I would just go in early in the morning when no one was there, and I could just get my exercising done. I started with cardio. The weights were super scary to me, and I became friends with one of the personal trainers there, and we used to talk off and on, and one day he approached me about just doing personal training. At first I was like, I don't know, if this is something I want to invest in or not, and I finally decided it was either that because I didn't want to go to therapy and it was a good outlet, and I needed to learn how to work out with weights and stuff. So I worked out with him, learned a lot of different forms, and then decided to start running. And in running, when I first started running, I hated it. I hated sweating the way I did, and I felt like I was being run over. But it soon became a competition with myself, and I'm very competitive also. So I would run, I would time myself, and then I decided to get involved in Spartan races. And this took my mental level to another level because I had to train for these. I actually had to put time and effort in these. I had to learn what burpees are, and oh my, I do not like burpees.
Nobody does.
But so I ended up getting a double trifecta in the Spartan races. And meanwhile, I was also going to college full-time, working full-time. And as a single mom, the only thing that really kept me going and for my time just to zone out was being able to run, being able to train, and just focusing on something else for an hour a day. And after getting my double trifecta, I went to the Arnold in Ohio, where I had somebody approach me and ask, I was looking for knee sleeves, and the guy that was selling them, he asked me, he's like, "Do you powerlift?" And I was like, "No, I don't powerlift." And little did I realize it was actually the president of USPA Federation, which is the federation I now compete in, and I'm also a state judge for that federation. So he hooked me up with some guys in Indiana, and I went to go work out with him, and the guy was like, "Man, you're really strong." I had strong, I think my deadlift was like 225. I was squatting like right at 200, and my bench was almost 100. Within, I would say, 2 months, when I started following a program for powerlifting, my lifts just increased. And I was hooked, and I decided to compete. And on my first competition, I didn't expect the amount of confidence that I would gain by competing. When I competed, and powerlifting is a very open world. It's a very welcoming world. Doesn't matter body image, shape, size. We don't care like if you're 20 pounds or 500 pounds. If you can lift and you follow the commands, you're good to go. So I really love that about powerlifting, because I never wanted to be a size 0. I'm not going to be a size 0 because I'm a thick, I know that I'm a thick person, and I embrace that. So after competing the first time, I realized that it made my mentally, I had grown so much. And so I decided to keep competing. I prepped for my first nationals. And meanwhile, before that, I had gotten married again. The marriage did not last very long, unfortunately. And right before nationals, he actually had told me that he wanted to divorce, and I was not going to go to nationals. And my friend had told me, "No, you're going to show up, and you're still going to compete." And after nationals, I realized once again that I was going to show up even better next time. And I was determined to just show the world, and maybe even him at one point, because I was a little bitter and angry still. I was like, I'm just going to show him. So I started switching my mindset, and mentally, like I started telling myself, you're a badass, you're going to freaking kill it. And I really just put in a lot of work, trained hard, and competed in December, reached my all-time powerlifting goal of 1,000-pound club. And I actually hit 1,013. So it was super exciting. But what I realized when I hit my 1,000 pounds, I thought that was the max I was going to go ever in my life in powerlifting. And that moment, I realized I had like almost a world of unlimited, like my potential wasn't even tapped. Like I now just opened up a whole other world. And as I prepped to go into nationals in 2020 this year, my goal is now to hit 450 squat, 450 deadlift, and a 235 bench. And I know it's there, and I know I'm capable of it. So through all of that, it also led me to, meanwhile, I did a lot of life searching, soul searching I knew I always had a bigger purpose in life. I had graduated from Purdue and had a bachelor's degree, landed the corporate job that I thought I wanted. It was like my dream job of the corporate world. Realized I was not happy there, and I left corporate in February of this year of 2020. And it was scary. It was very scary, and I thought I was leaving corporate world to become a nutrition coach, and now that does not seem to be aligning with me. So I'm now just waiting for like, what is, I know I have a bigger purpose, and a purpose to empower others and to show others that there is such an unlimited potential. Like all of us, once we tap into it and know how to get there, it's just unlimited. And one thing I would say that was always consistent was the working out part and the mental part that goes with it. Through each obstacle of life, I always had that mental fitness to go back to, and it was the outlet. And I realized every time I reached a new PR or I ran extra fast, I realized I had more potential, and it just keeps going more and more. It's just like a world of unlimited potential. And that's really how we are as people, is we have this unlimited potential, but we just don't realize it. We have to tap into it. And when we start tapping into it, we're like, oh yeah, I'm so much more. But it's tapping into that. And the fitness, being just in powerlifting and working out, has taught me that and so much more.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing that story. Something I'd like to touch upon here, back when you were in the Amish community, you mentioned that you had always felt that there was something else that was going to be there for you. Did you have any key moments where it was like an aha moment where you said, this is definitely not for me? Or do you think it was just years and years of being in that community, it just all built up and finally was one of those enough is enough moments?
Yeah, I would say my key moment was one of my best friends had actually gotten killed in a buggy accident. And in that moment at her funeral, I realized, it hit me that there were some things that was said in the funeral that I did not agree with. And I could not understand how in a community this big and that is so religious, but yet so limited. And it kind of hit me that this is no longer for you. And I was 16 at the age. And throughout the whole being Amish and throughout the whole life, I always wondered, like, why do we live this way? Like, why are we so restricted in everything we do? And what would it be like to actually have true happiness, to actually have a life where people don't stereotype? So anytime we went out into public, people would stereotype us or ask us like crazy questions. And I hated that. So yeah, there was a lot of moments of like, just what would life be like if it wasn't so restrictive?
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's pretty powerful, especially when we grow up in a certain situation, when we know our heart and our heads are just pulling us another way, trying to seek more, what else might be out there. It's very difficult for us to take that step outside of our comfort zone. But there's a good quote that Dr. Jordan Peterson says, where whenever you do try something new like this or confront fear, you should be afraid, but you should be more afraid of being the same as you were a year ago. And I think that's quite powerful and applies to you directly, because, you can, in a situation like that, you can very easily stay that way your whole life, just accept it and go, but you kept seeking more. And I think that's a very powerful move on your part, and it's led you to some great things. I want to get into your experience with the powerlifting a little bit more. Again, you just so happened to stumble across powerlifting. You didn't think it was where you were going to be. You were buying some knee sleeves and just so happened to walk into something that was your purpose. So when you started transitioning and trying out powerlifting, what was going through your head at the time? What kind of thoughts did you have? Did you ever doubt yourself within powerlifting? And when did that maybe switch to say, you know what, this is actually something a little more than just a hobby?
Yes, I would say it took me a long time to actually realize that powerlifting not only made me strong, physically. Clearly I was very strong. My lifts just like kept going up and up. But each time I plateaued on a lift, I realized that you had to do certain things to kind of break through that plateau. And that's kind of how life is. Sometimes you get stuck and you have to do different things to break through that stuck. And sometimes it's mentally, we have to just break through, whether it's limiting beliefs or building more confidence or whatever it may be. That's just kind of how powerlifting is. And I realized in powerlifting, a lot of times I did it for a PR because like I live for adrenaline. So I'm all about like, let's slap some heavy weights on there. But one of my best friends that powerlifts with me, she kind of keeps me in check of like, hey, you've got to do the base work as well. And again, it kind of transitions to my life of like, we can't just have all the highs in life. We all have lows. It's how we take those low points in our life and how we learn from them. And when I realized that powerlifting was something that I was passionate about, and what I loved about it was I didn't have to worry about a body image anymore. I could finally be the thick girl that loved donuts and pizza and occasionally had pizza maybe once a week and not have to worry about it. I could finally just be like, you know what? I'm going to wear shorts to the gym. If you don't like it, fine. I was that girl that would not wear shorts to the gym. I wouldn't wear tank tops because I looked bulky, and people had told me like, you look bulky, and it bothered me. And now I'm like, if you call me thick or bulky, thank you, because guess what? I worked hard to get this way. Yeah, it may not be your body image. That's okay. Like it's what I want. So I realized it completely changed my mindset around body image so much. And it made me so confident in who I am and what I want. Yeah, it's been incredible. Powerlifting has definitely empowered me to do a lot of amazing things, and I don't miss running either. I'm just going to say that.
I have to side with you there. So I'm actually training for my first ultra endurance race at the end of the year. No matter how many times I run, I hate it. I really do. I try and hide it. I even do mantras when I'm out running saying, I love this, I'm enjoying myself. But that small voice even further back in my head is saying, no, you don't. This is awful. Something that you actually just said that I thought was quite powerful, and I'd like to encourage a lot of people, is when you do get into the fitness community especially, there's a lot of misconceptions with what I call the Hollywood fitness realm. That's the realm where we have these unrealistic body types. People are starving themselves 6 days out of the week, killing themselves in the gym just to try and get a real slim waist. And it might be physically appealing to some people, but it's actually not very healthy for you. And one thing I've noticed is when you get into these communities, a powerlifting community, bodybuilding community, even a Spartan race community, any of these real fitness communities where they love physical fitness and just pushing people to be better, you find a lot of acceptance in there. So I like to encourage everyone to find those groups, Zumba classes, even if it's CrossFitting groups, whatever it is, you'll find a lot of encouragement and people of all different body types and sizes that go in and just root each other on. So I think it's very powerful that you touched upon that there. One thing I'd like to ask you that I know a lot of my listeners are struggling with is addressing your leaving the corporate world. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there who are telling themselves, this isn't for me, I want to leave. But then they say, I'm married or I have kids, I have all these responsibilities. If I leave that, I'm taking a risk. How do I deal with that? So I want to know what went through your thought process on leaving, and what was the turning point where you said, okay, this is the right thing for me to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will tell you, it was by far in my top 5 hardest decisions I've probably made my entire life, because you have this corporate job. That job is giving you a title. It's whether it's CEO or whether it's just a project manager, whatever it is, we tend to cling to those titles. And one of the things I realized was I was more than this title. I had a title of like cross-functional lead, and it was a position. It was a perfect position. And I battled a long time with, how do I justify leaving a perfect corporate world? It's a stable job, good benefits, good insurance, And every time I would ask myself that, the voice in my head kept running was, you were made for more. You know that you were made for more. By you not showing up as your true self and helping more and doing more, you're doing a disservice to all those people out there you could actually be helping. Right now in your corporate job, you're not doing that. So that was kind of the turning point of like, okay. And then there was also the logic side of, but you're a single mom, you have 2 boys. Like, no, you can't do this. Like, you need a stable income. And finally, one day, one of my best friends was like, she said, maybe you just try mentally quitting. And I was like, what? I was like, you're crazy. And she's like, no, just mentally say, okay, I quit. I put my 2 weeks in. And after a day, like, this bothered me that she said this. And after a day, I was like, that sounds good. Like, that sounds really, really good. And I started to feel like a relief. Like, I had actually put my 2 weeks in, but I didn't. So when you mentally make that switch of, okay, this is going to be scary, but I'm going to see this as a big opportunity. And don't look at fear as something that is impossible, but look at more fear as at it with love. And I know that's a whole other story of like looking at fear, in love, but look at it as something that isn't horrible, but something that's there to kind of, we have fear for many reasons, but if we tend to look at it at a different point of view, then it can help us. So anyways, back to my corporate story. I quit to put my 2 weeks in mentally. And it just so happened that I had 2 weeks PTO. And I went in and I told my manager that I'm taking 2 weeks PTO. Did not say I was quitting, did not say anything. And in those 2 weeks, I did a lot of soul searching of like, who am I? What do I want out of life? And everything that, like, is corporate world really what I want? And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm very passionate about leadership. And I came from a strong automotive background. I know automotive like the back of my hands. I know processes. I'm very like structured. So corporate makes logical sense because that's how I've been so wired. So during those 2 weeks, I also picked up meditation, which I'd picked up meditation a little bit before, but I really got into the routine of just focusing on who I am, what do I want out of life. And I had 2 boys here, and being able to get them on and off the bus, I've never in my entire career, been able to do that. So my boys are 11 and 13, and I was finally able to start getting them up and getting them on and off the bus. And I was like, what have I done my entire life? Like, my entire life, I wasn't able to do this with my boys. And so it was just another confirmation that corporate world is not for you. And it was so hard to give up, like for me to surrender, to be like, corporate world isn't for you, but you have to get to the point of, 1, mentally quitting, and 2, knowing that you have so much potential. I don't care what your title is. I don't care if you're the CEO of the biggest company. You even have more potential. You're just like an unlimited tapped resource. And once you understand that, know that, and believe that about yourself, you've just opened up the world to all possibilities. So I think that's like the start of it, is really getting clear. And don't let those limiting beliefs run. Like, interrupt those limiting beliefs. When those limiting beliefs keep going, but you need this, no, quiet them. Just acknowledging that they're there. I understand that I have fear around quitting my job, but I also know how amazing I can be at whatever it may be that you want to do.
Awesome. So yeah, it's pretty powerful there. A lot of people underestimate what the capabilities of our mind is. And if we can just sit in a quiet spot, I myself have gotten into meditation pretty much over the last year or so, and it's been a tremendous impact on everything. Now, leading up to that, I'm always very high wired and energetic. I like to continuously keep moving. So when I first started, I was like, so you want me to sit quietly with my thoughts? I can't do that. But the more you do it, you start to realize that your thoughts become more clear. You start to realize things that were, maybe you're passionate about that you didn't uncover before. So I think it's very important for my listeners to understand that if you are facing a difficult decision or you think your heart and head is pulling you one way or another, take some time, like she said, to soul search, meditate, write it down, think about the things that really get you happy and joyful, and it can do some pretty incredible things. One thing you just said that really hits my heart closely is about us being limitless. It's something that I've grown rather obsessed with ever since I actually ran my marathon last year. I hadn't been really training as far as cardio for all that much, maybe about a year and a half, and I didn't really dedicate that much to ramping up to the marathon, but I was able to complete the race, and I thought to myself, well, if I've gotten to here in a short period, what's the next step? And it just has me very curious on what the human potential is. And as far as what you said with fear, I think it's really great because it seems anytime we're confronted with fear, if we face that fear, we realize that A, it's usually not as bad as we originally thought, and B, once it's confronted, the other side is just so much better. So I'd like to hear a little more from you actually in regards to fear. I know you said that was a whole other story, but what kind of techniques outside of maybe meditation do you use to help you confront fear, to really help yourself grow and take on fear head to head?
So me and fear have not had a good relationship probably my entire life. It's probably just been I would say the past maybe 6 months. And I always heard that you should allow your feelings. You shouldn't fight them. And I was kind of wired into the world of, but I have fear. I don't want to feel the fear. So what happens when you have fear around something? If you acknowledge that it's there, and this was me, I was on a replay of, oh, I have fear. Now I have fear that I have fear. Now that I have fear that I have fear, that I'm not going to attract good things in my life. It was just keeps running and running. And then I would find myself just so frustrated that I would pick something else to do to not even think about it. So now if you think about fear, one of the things I started doing was, okay, so a fearful thought comes up. Okay, I have fear that I'm not going to be able to figure out my life. Acknowledge the fear is there. It's almost like you say, okay, welcome to the party, fear. You're there. You acknowledge that it's there. You feel it, and you allow yourself to feel, yeah, it's fearful. But what happens is when you acknowledge it and allow yourself to feel it, you automatically feel a relief. And that's kind of where it starts to change. And I know it sounds crazy because I was like, I ain't feeling any of this stuff. I don't want to feel the fear, because from the moment of leaving at the age of 17, when I jumped out of a 2-story house, I was filled with fear. Everything was fear-based. And then I realized that I made a lot of decisions fear-based instead of love-based. So I would make just decisions because based on fear, I needed to do this or I needed to do that. Kind of goes back to the corporate world. For a long time, I didn't want to give up my corporate job because it was a fear-based decision. If I went love-based, it told me leave the world, right? Leave the corporate world. So now for me, for how I deal with fear, I do meditation a lot. I do a lot of journaling, and it's slowing down and allowing myself to be present to what's feeling. I don't care how positive a person you are, you're still somewhat going to have fears. Every day or maybe it's every other day for you. You're still going to have fear in your life. Acknowledge the fear, feel it almost. And if it helps, if you want to be like me and be like, hey, welcome to the party, fear. I know you're there. I acknowledge it. And you feel a relief around it. If you don't acknowledge it, the vicious cycle that you'll continue to go on that I was on was, okay, now I have fear. All right, Emily, you need to think positive thoughts. Okay, 5 minutes later, I still have the fear. It still keeps going on and on. So it's almost like when you acknowledge it, it's there, then there's relief around it, and you stop thinking about it. So that was a game changer for me. At first, when I heard this, I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard, because 9 months ago, had you known me 9 months ago, I didn't do meditation. I did personal development halfways, and I thought, meditation was the woo-woo stuff and I would never do it. And now it's a part of my daily routine. So it does work. The meditation, journaling, and the personal development, and just investing in yourself, and just to be able to deal with fear now with love in my heart instead of like being such a fearful person has been incredible.
Awesome. I think you really hit the nail on the head there, talking about that with fear and identifying it, just like it takes sports, for example, powerlifting, whatever it may be, maybe you're stuck in a certain rut and you can't get past a new PR, whatever it is, but you're making the same mistake over and over. If you don't know what that mistake is, if you can't identify it, then there's no way you can go ahead and correct it. But you might need somebody, or take a video of your form or whatever it is. If you're a golfer swinging a golf club and you look at the video and you're like, oh, that's the mistake. And once you identify it, then it's like, okay, now I can start to work on how to fix it. So I think that's pretty powerful there. Let me ask you, Emily, where does somebody like you draw inspiration? Who are some of your personal heroes? Who are people that you look up to? And where do you draw that motivation and passion from?
So I have quite a bit of personal heroes. And when I first started personal development, I was a big Eric Thomas fan, Tony Robbins. And here recently, I have been doing reading and doing a lot of Gabby Bernstein meditations. And this is her book, The Universe Has Your Back, has completely kind of changed my mindset for business inspiration. So I kind of go for, there's like the powerlifting inspiration, there's the business inspiration, because that's just how I'm structured. Business inspiration, Chris Harder, he has a podcast called For the Love of Money. And his wife, Lori Harder, has a podcast, Earn Your Happy. And those two podcasts, I would listen to them daily, and I still listen to them because they were true, authentic entrepreneurs, and it was so real and relatable. And now to see where they're at in life and just be such successful people, that's what drives me and what keeps me going there. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, YouTube. I do read quite a bit of books, but I would say those would probably be my top choices.
Excellent. And if you were to give, let's say, 2 books for my listeners that you said you have to read these, for those that want to do a little self-improvement, what 2 books would you recommend?
I would recommend The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. And there is also The Secrets to Prosperity by Catherine Ponder. Definitely my top 2 books.
Beautiful. All right, Emily. So we're going to get into one of my favorite parts, which is the rapid fire questions. But before we do get into this, go ahead and let my listeners know, where can they find you? Are you on social media, a website, anything like that?
Yes. So I do. I'm very active on Instagram. Instagram stories are my life. So I am Emily_powerlifting. I know, powerlifting, right? So that's where they can find me or follow me. And I do have my website. It's emilyadams.net. So that is just getting ready to launch, and it's kind of evolving. And my Twitter is Emily_powerlift.
Beautiful. All right. So we kind of discussed this a little bit before the meeting, but these rapid fire questions, I'm going to give you 10 of them. It's either going to be this or that, or it's just going to be a topic, and I want you to give me a 1 or 2 word response, your first initial gut reaction when I say them, okay?
Okay.
So first one, dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Oh, dark chocolate.
Thoughts on energy drinks?
Oh, bang or rain all day long.
Favorite exercise?
Deadlifts.
Favorite body part to train?
Legs.
You're a rare breed there.
Legs all day.
Least favorite body part to train?
Arms.
Biggest pet peeve?
When people chew with their mouth open.
Cake or pie?
Cake.
Favorite food?
Pizza.
Woman after my own heart there. Climb a mountain or jump from a plane?
Oh, jump from a plane. Went skydiving this year.
And biggest fear?
Fear of failing.
Love that. Well, Emily, thank you so much for being a guest on my show today. You truly do have an inspirational story, something that a lot of people can draw from. I know there's a lot of people listening who have gone through something similar or can pick up on something that you have gone through. And I hope they listen closely to what's helped you. Get in touch with you. Everyone, please go ahead and follow her on all her social media. We're going to have you check out her website. And Emily, thank you again so much for being here. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much to everyone who joined me today on this episode of Purpose Through Fitness. What an incredible story that Emily has gone through, many of the obstacles that she has faced, and she has come through each and every one stronger than she was before. And it's quite admirable to watch and hear her story, and I hope that you take away something from this as well. Now, as always, you know I like to finish with a Bible verse that's applicable with today's lesson or today's interview, and the one that really sticks out to me is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, which says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean on not your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." I think this verse is very applicable for Emily because throughout her life, she's had many instances where it seemed like she was not on the right path. There was something tugging at her, something pulling her a different way, saying this is not where you're intended to be. And the beauty of that is we all seem to experience this same type of feeling many times throughout our lives, but we never take that first step. We never take action and try to change. And that's where I commend Emily so much. She has taken action with every hurdle, obstacle, and roadblock that has come her way. She has taken action to correct course, and she is now on the path to her true intended purpose. I want to thank you again so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to this episode. Listen, I know we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and how we utilize those hours are very important for us. So the fact that you would take your precious time to listen to an interview that I conducted or to listen to anything that I may say is just truly humbling, and I'm honored each and every week that I sit down to do these episodes. So thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to bring you some new interviews coming up with some really special people, some stories that are going to shock you, surprise you, and hopefully get you to start living that more purposeful and positive lifestyle. Many blessings to you all. I love each and every one of you dearly, and have a beautiful week ahead.